Today, it's your birthday. And guess what? Yesterday was too, and tomorrow will be too. Not sure what we mean by that? Let us introduce you to our powerful concept and our community. We are so thrilled you have joined. We are Helene and Christina, and our mission is to empower, teach, and remind women to celebrate themselves. Combined, we have over 35 years' experience as therapists in private practice. It was in the office and in our personal relationships where we were hearing women struggle and not feeling seen or alive during their messy middle life stage. If you're curious how we define this stage of life, or if you're experiencing it, go back to season 1, episode 2.
We come to you not as therapists, but rather two women in this life stage with you, your friends. Our podcast promises to talk about the hard or uncomfortable topics in a way that empower you and laugh along the way as part of healing and to find joy in life. We strive to find the meaning in the middle of the messy or the unknown. What sets us apart, you might ask? Christina and I leave you with gifts each and every episode. These may come in the form of actionable tools or strategies, invitations to be exactly where you are, and sometimes mic drop thought-provoking ideas. So now that we're friends, let's make this official. We would absolutely love to help start your Thursday mornings, so make sure you follow the show wherever you're listening to us right now and sign up for our free newsletter on our website, yourbirthdaypodcast.com. Ready for some gifts to start living your life how you want? Take the free quiz on our website, and gifts will be dropped from Christina and I immediately into your inbox.
Friends, today's episode is so important and filled with so many gifts for all of us. When somebody shares something with us or we are given the opportunity to listen, we truly receive a gift from another person. Today, we are going to unpack the gifts we receive from listening and explore the benefits. Now, if you are in the middle of 153 things like I am, and you have, I don't even know how many window tabs open, I get it. But notice that we totally understand and invite you to bookmark this episode and come back to it. Helene and I are here for you, with you. So grab your beverage of choice, mine is coffee today, and get ready to listen and learn about the gifts of listening to others. I love this episode, and this is an oof, right? I do the oof or the wow. But this was one that I don't think I fully learned until I was in my 30s.
Well, because I think no one really sits down, or maybe there's people out there who someone has sat you down and really told you what it truly means to listen. I mean, it shows up in my office, especially working with couples, that the concept and the privilege of listening is not fully understood or embraced. And I think it's when you have some more deeper connections or powerful relationships that you come across what listening is and perhaps what it isn't, like you just said.
It's so true. I mean, how many times do we have couples in our office, and what's the number one complaint? You don't listen.
Right.
And I'm like reflecting on my life. Like, this has been a very busy start of a year for me. And I'm going, ooh, I need to really work on this, because I usually have a laptop in front of me or a phone in front of me that I'm responding to a text if somebody's talking to me or something like this, which is so funny because in season 1, we had an episode about, I think, the gift of friendship. I don't remember. And I was like, one of the things I do is make sure I set my phone down and I don't look at it, like when I'm spending quality time with friends. And I need this reminder of like the importance of active listening.
So with that, maybe it would help, because I think people in our audience may hear the term like passive versus active listening, and there's a huge difference. So maybe
100%.
quickly going into what's the difference, because I would imagine by the time you're done with this episode, and again, if you need to go back and listen to it again, please gift yourself that. I would imagine the majority of people desperately want more active listening. So it might help you to know the difference. So then, if you're not experiencing it, you can say either to your partner, to your colleague, this is what I'm really needing and wanting from you. And you can give them some like actionable tips of what you're desiring.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way I think we define passive listening is it's just a one-way communication style where somebody hears what's being said, you don't really actively engage in it. So, like for instance, you know, me saying to my husband, I'm going to take my daughter to dance now, and I leave, right? It's just he heard it, he knows I'm leaving. He might kiss me goodbye depending how busy we are. Hopefully he does, and then, we walk out the door.
It's like a quick memo passing. It's like, hey,
Yeah,
like just letting you know this. It's quick, it's passive. There's not a
right.
back and forth. You're telling someone something and you're hoping they hear it.
Right. Right. And then I see active listening as somebody like just really intensely listening to what you have to say, noticing the verbal, the physical, all the cues, right? This is what made Zoom so hard for therapists when we started, is because we've been taught active listening. And so it was really hard, especially if you saw kids. But it's just looking at the whole person, listening to their words intently, and being able to provide feedback
Right.
and really wanting to engage. Like, for example, literally before this Zoom, I said to Helene, I need a consultation quick. And I shared about the case, obviously, no identifying information. And she gave me some great positive feedback that helped me be able to figure this case out. And so, like, that's active listening, right? Or in a marital relationship, sitting down and talking through maybe a goal for saving for vacation, or, hey, this child wants to do this activity. These are the dates it is. This is the times. This is financial commitment. This is, if we coach, it's cheaper, things like that. And like
Yeah.
talking it through and then making a decision together, like listening to the feedback they give you.
And I think a good parent-child one that I mean, the first 10 years that I was in practice, I saw a lot of family and children. And I remember this case that it was an older child came in and he was doing some work with one parent. And he kept saying to the parent, you don't listen to me.
Mm.
And the parent kept saying, I hear everything that you say. And the child just kept getting more and more frustrated. No,
Mm.
you don't listen to me. Now, I knew the child and the parent well. There definitely was an established relationship. So I said to the child, take what you want within my office and formulate a little bit of like kind of role play it out for me because
Yeah.
you're advocating, you know, listen to me. Your parent is saying, I hear you. And you're like, I don't listen. Play for me what it looks like. And what ended up happening is the child would often go into the office in the home and say, hey, blah, 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 or blah, blah, blah. And the parent was, you know, high power job. So in front of a screen, also had two or three monitors up. There was background noise of them listening. They were writing, you know, they would pop their head up and be like, oh, yeah, I got you, bud. Yep, no problem, bud. Yep, I got that. But there wasn't what Christina just shared. There wasn't the availability to either say, hey, bud, I'm in the middle of something and I hear that there's something that you're needing. Is it like a 911 or can it wait 5 minutes? No, it can wait 5 minutes. Okay, let me shut down my computer. Let me come out of the office. Let's meet in the living room. And then that parent can fully be available to see the body language of the child, hear the inflection, repeat back to them. So when you're actively listening, you're available for a conversation versus the passive form where Christina passed a really powerful memo. Hey, I'm taking Savea to dance. I'm leaving right now. Thanks for the kiss on the cheek. I'll drive safely. That's just a quick exchange. Active, you're more involved. You want to listen. You let the person know you're available.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to, how many memes, or I think every parent can say, like, the second they grab their phone or they grab a book or they grab like quiet time, kids find them and they're like, Mom, da, 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 right?
Right. Sure.
The other, literally just yesterday, I think I was actually texting you, maybe. But I was like responding to a quick text, and Carl comes up to me and he starts like sputtering something at me. And I was like, pause. I was like, I want to hear what you have to say. Let me finish this thing real quick. It'll take me a second. I did it. I put my phone down, face down, like literally went, and I said, what do you need, babe? And it was so much better than if he would have tried to do it while I'm trying to text and like do many things. And the funny thing is, I didn't even think about this episode, but it dawned on me. He was like, Mom, thanks for listening. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
you're welcome, bud. You know?
right. And I love what you did because you validated him. You said, I see you. I want to be available for you. And he clearly felt it afterwards.
Yeah.
So there's so many benefits of this.
We had a phase when Svea a few years ago, I think it was probably like maybe 3 years ago, where she was chronically interrupting like conversations. And so we taught her a thing of like, just put your hand on like my wrist or my
Mhm.
arm to like let me know that you need me. And so we would do that. And so to this day, sometimes when my husband and I are like really engaged in like a
Oh,
conversation, not arguing or anything, but just like back and
right.
forth, and she has something she wants to interject or she has something she needs to tell us or whatever, like she will come up and just put her hand on my hand or my arm. And I'm like, we'll finish our train of thought. And then I will say pause and I will say, thank you, acknowledge, thank you for not
Right.
interrupting. How can I help you?
And
And
I think what we want people to know that with listening, we understand you also have life. You probably
yes,
also still have 110 things going on in your brain. And the other great thing about when you're active listening, you let the other person know, I hear you, I see you, give me a moment, I'm coming to you. You can take that pause, finish what you're doing,
yeah,
or just take the pause because you may not know what they're going to say to you. And so often, when people want to say something to you, we might go into defense mode. We may go into thinking about other things, and then you miss the benefits. And I think we want to tell you a little bit now why active listening is so powerful because we're going to give you some benefits of it.
yeah. I think it can be triggering too. Like if you find yourself not a confident person and somebody's giving you, feedback about how they feel or your relationship or something like that, it's
Mm.
easy to quickly get defensive and protective of yourself and like throw it back on them.
Right.
And I think, like I said, I don't feel like I fully got this till my 30s. And I think it's because I didn't start to have confidence till then. And so, once I became more confident in who I was able to take people's feedback and actively listen to it. And then I could decide for myself what worked and what fit and like maybe was like great feedback that I needed to change my ways or learn from. And what was like, nope, that's not mine. But, you know,
Mhm.
how can I engage in you in a way that doesn't throw it back at you, but rather like learn how to communicate back and forth? So the other thing is active listening. If somebody is critiquing you, you
Mhm.
have a choice and you have to decide if it fits with who you are or if it doesn't. Like you don't have to accept everybody's words as truth. So I want to give that caveat. You can still actively listen, but it's how you engage in it. If you engage in a self defense of like, no, you're the problem and da 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 da, that's not actively listening.
Right. That's shutting it down.
That's defensive listening,
Yeah. But if
right?
someone comes to you, like Christina shared, you could take a deep breath, right? We want you to take a deep breath, regulate anything going on within your nervous system. Simply just telling them, okay, tell me more. You do invite them to share more. You can listen. And at the end of it, you can simply say, okay, I wasn't expecting you to say all that. That was a lot. I'm going to take my time to kind of process and sift through it. So that way you're also just validating, and then you can allow yourself that space, like Christina said. Then you can either journal about it, you can think about it and say, is this stuff that I need to own, be aware of it, or was this really just theirs? That again, there's a lot of people out there who aren't very healthy and they may put it onto you. And that's the stuff you might drop. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think, it's about building trust. And if this is a relationship that you genuinely care about, being able to be an active listener creates that stronger relationship. It creates that bond, it creates that attachment, all of the things that we want in our close interpersonal relationships, or maybe as we're building a new relationship, whether it be romantic or a friendship or, you know, creating a healthier relationship with a family member, something like that. And, I think like some of the best feedback I've gotten in life is through active listening.
Mm.
Whether it's even, it might not even be about me. Like it doesn't have to be about me. It's, somebody sharing about some other situation or relationship. And then you're able to go, oh, I do some of that. And that's not something I really want to do. So I'm going to make sure that, like, even though this person wasn't giving me feedback about myself, I have an opportunity to learn from it and
Mm.
I can grow in a better way too. And I don't want to do that, like I can think of, modeling, like seeing marriages and seeing like somebody like just sharing with me their concerns or their heartache around a marriage and or like a behavior, and I think, oh, I could easily do that, or oh, that's something that
Mm.
I start to see myself do and I don't want to do that, so I'm going to make a conscious effort not to. And that's not something that like you give them that feedback, it's just something you internalize and go, yep, learning.
Right. It's like a little nugget that you
Yeah.
unexpectedly got or that you received. And I often tell people when someone is sharing something with you, whether it's your partner, whether, like Christina said, it could just be a good friend or someone you're on a walk and talk with and they're sharing something with you, it is an absolute privilege.
Yeah.
It's a privilege that someone is asking you. And in that moment, you're asking no one else to listen. It's an
Mm-hmm.
incredibly vulnerable thing for the person sending the
Mm-hmm.
message or what they want to share. And it's an incredibly vulnerable place for the receiver of the communication because they have to choose
Mm-hmm.
and then commit to kind of closing everything else in their brain or like that parent, everything on their screen so that they are willing and they are willing, not only just willing, but they are available and they're willing to receive the honorable space that the person is sharing with them.
Yeah. I mean, it's not an easy thing. It's a higher level process, but it's when you can learn this skill, you really can foster healthy relationships and joy. I mean, you foster joy. That's what I would say. And it also helps you kind of weed out the unhealthy relationships because you then surround yourself by other people that can do this and you kind of distance yourself from people who aren't capable.
Right? You'll learn quickly.
Yeah.
And sometimes active listening is hard. I mean, I think on the top of my head, I was thinking about a situation that could be really hard. Let's say a teacher of one of your children asks you for a
Mm-hmm.
school conference
Mm-hmm.
and it's out of nowhere and you don't know what's going on and you instinctually just kind of want to go in as like mama or papa bear.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, whew, we did the studying. We worked on the project. Like everything's going well. I checked the backpack. I do go over like the JoJo thing that's on the app, right? If you can
Right.
drop all that and just show up and just say, I'm available to listen. They called this meeting and first just hear what they're saying. You have to disarmor all of those things that might show up with you in
Mm-hmm.
something like that, or even like a boss that's calling you in that you don't expect. You have to
Ooh.
regulate. And I go back to that gift that you keep giving us, Christina. Get in touch with your five senses, come back to the present. You don't know what's going to be said. And simply right now, all you're doing is just listening to understand and to hear them.
Yeah. Or if you make a mistake at the job, right? Like that's
Mhm.
really hard. And especially if you don't have healthy coworkers or a healthy supervisor and they give you that feedback, it is easy to get defensive.
Very much so.
I had an incident a few years ago with an employee, and I remember her coming to me and saying, like, look, I screwed something up. It was like a very expensive expense to the company. And, she just owned it. And I remember looking at her and being like, wow. And she goes, is that well good or well bad? I go, no, it's well good. Like,
Mhm.
thank you for your honesty, first
Right.
and foremost. Like, I just want to own that. I want to own how you took responsibility because that's like a major key component to me for anybody I hire is that you can own what you did and that you feel safe in coming to me so that we can figure it out together. And then, we sat down and I said, let's solve this together. Let's sit through it and figure it out. And we did. And what came out of it was really just like a very simple solution. But I think like this person was so overwhelmed by the mistake and so anxious because they were a phenomenal person who, constantly brought their best to the table.
Right.
And it was a human error.
Yep.
And so, if you're sitting on the other side and the receiving end of somebody who comes to you in a vulnerable place, this is where active listening is key, that you create a safe space for them. And if you can come at it with like, thanks for trusting me, thanks for letting me know, like, let's solve this together, let's figure this out together. Like, you've created an incredible opportunity for them and yourselves. And I think of this too as like a teenager. When a teenager makes a mistake, like maybe they get in trouble, right? Like they got caught with weed or, they got a speeding ticket or a car accident or something. If you have created a non-judgmental, active listening space,
Yep.
your kid will come to you.
Yep.
And something that I pour into my children all the time is I always say, there is no problem too big for us to solve together. Because I want them to always know that like we will figure it out. And I always say, like, I can't promise that I won't be like upset or nervous or scared.
Sure.
But we will figure it out together.
Right.
And as your parent, it is my honor to be able to solve this with you.
Right. Yes. So I think we gave them a bunch of the benefits. So active listening can help build trust. It can expand your personal growth, kind of like the little nugget that Christina shared. You might be hearing someone else share something and you're like, oh, I could take that with me. But there's definitely some possible barriers. So I don't know. I guess we got to unpack some of those. I mean, that parent, when I told you about when the child was coming in and saying, you're not listening, and they said, I hear everything, they were full of distractions, right? They had the computer, they had another monitor, they had something in the background. Christina shared that sometimes people can come in with judgments or some preconceived notions. So it's dropping some of those, or kind of like that parent who's going to that teacher conference. You have to drop some of those, the projections, so that you could be available to fully listen. Those can be absolute huge distractions and barriers to listening to what the person wants you to be aware of.
Right. I think the hard thing is too, like if you've had a tough week and you feel like you've been slammed in multiple ways, and then all of a sudden you get this request for a teacher meeting, it's like, oh, fuck, here we go again. Like you're just already feeling down and out. So it's like, I need a win somewhere. And so you get more defensive, which I would say is like a natural response that you have to fight and realize like this isn't about me. It isn't a criticism of me.
Right.
It's an opportunity to learn. And I think when we can reframe the barriers to like opportunities, whether it's to learn like my child needs help, or you know what, this is a simple thing, I just need to sign the assignment notebook, or maybe this teacher isn't the right fit, like just not connecting with my kid, it might be that. But absolutely. And I think with technology, it's so easy to get distracted. It is so easy to get distracted. The ding on your phone, the ding on your watch, the vibration. I mean, I sit in session and I feel like my phone vibrate the second my kids get home from school nonstop. And I'm like, oh. And so I have to like focus. And sometimes it's putting my watch in theater mode because I know my husband's home and they're fine. They are fine. Right. They don't need me. They probably want me to get out of having to clean their room or something. But yeah. And I think we also, especially as women who just have so much on our plates, we're running our house full time. We're working full time. A lot of times we're volunteering. We're doing a lot of things. I mean, the average woman, I think I read, has 3 full-time jobs, has the equivalent of 3 full-time jobs.
I believe it.
Think about that. Right. So we are constantly trying to maximize our time and multitask. And active listening makes us pause, and we cannot multitask. Like you can't do something else when you're active listening.
Or you're not going to fully embrace active listening and creating what Christina said, that safe space, that trust building,
Right.
that opportunity to converse if you're multitasking.
Mm-hmm.
It'll rob you of that experience. And if you're listening to us and you've been hanging out with us for 6 months now, we know you want those connections. You
Mm-hmm.
want community. So
Right.
we want you to embrace and invest in it and shutting
Yeah.
things off for the moment to receive what someone's offering you to be in.
It's interesting. I just put that out there and my watch is going non-stop. I'm like, what the hell? So anyway, I was like literally as you were talking, sitting here putting it in theater mode. I was like, "Rrr," so that
Yeah.
I can actively listen and participate in this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, there was someone who came to my office months ago and they had such a crazy job. Like their watch and phone did not stop. Did not
Mhm.
stop. And after the third session, and it wasn't a crisis situation. I mean, there was no safety issues. There was nothing like that. And I said, come back when you can. Like your time and energy and finances are so important to you that you come, but you're not fully here.
Yeah.
Come when you can. And 3 months later, she came in and she said, I left my phone, I left my watch, I set boundaries at work. Because if I'm going to be a good leader, if I'm going to be healthy at home, if I'm going to be in my partner, like I had to get rid of some of that. And no one had ever told her that. And she chose her. So happy birthday to her. So, yes, I love Christina saying you have to choose to be really present for active listening because then you get the gifts. And I know we got gifts, right?
We do. Oh my gosh.
I love gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I have started on Sundays, like kind of unplugging from technology. And Helene's probably noticed that I'm not really texting her on Sundays because it's like our time as family. And like this Sunday, we all went skiing and I never looked at my device until like after my kids go to bed. Like that's my thing. After my kids go to bed.
Mhm.
And after my kids went to bed, I had literally 42 text messages. But you know what? I was able to get through all of them in 5 minutes.
And nothing was a 911.
No, no.
Right.
Yes. And it was wonderful. And, like my kids actually know. So they're like, Mom, you didn't pull out your phone except to take pictures or videos of us.
Isn't that powerful when they notice
Yeah.
they're
And
watching?
they always say that like my husband's the one who's more on his technology than me, but that was like a mind opener to be like, no, Christina, you probably are just the same. They just give you more grace.
Mm.
Yeah. So when we go back to listening to others, I think that's a gift, like people noticing and appreciating. And we learn like new perspectives. That's what I love. Like I love learning from people. I would say every day I go to work and I hope that I give my patients something, but I always learn from them.
Mhm.
And, broader horizons, we learn different cultures, we learn different ways of communicating, we learn different, types of people. And we get to see how different people think. And, you know, having the different experiences expands our worldview and reduces our assumptions. Like we make so many assumptions about people just on appearance, just on appearance. And you know what? I will tell you every time I've made an assumption about somebody on appearance, I have been wrong. One of my best friends ever, I
Mhm.
totally judged on appearance. And I've told her this, and she like cracks up at me all the time. But I did. And I had such a different perception of who she is. And she is an incredible human, right?
Mhm. Right.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And if my husband hadn't become friends with them, I wouldn't have her
Mm.
because he
Oh,
never shared those assumptions.
right. That's awesome.
So, yeah.
And I think listening can also help you like gain some personal and professional growth. And I always think back to when I was early starting off in private practice. I was in a great, amazing group practice. And I was the newbie, I was the young one. And I would go in with a notebook every Wednesday. We would have like lunch and we would have staffing. And I just went in with my notebook and I just listened because I had the greatest room of like five people who were anywhere from like 10, 20, 30 years ahead of me.
Mm,
And just listening to them
hmm.
was like, not to minimize like everything I learned in graduate school, but it was like graduate school 2.0. So
Yeah.
just active listening, connecting with them, being open and available to people
Mm,
ahead of me mentored me tremendously. So I think you can gain the gift of a lot of personal and professional growth when you allow yourself to get in connection and to just simply listen.
hmm. Hmm. I know as a white woman, I have really worked hard to listen to people of color's perspective and
Mhm.
understanding microaggressions and understanding things that I just don't even realize that come with my white privilege.
Right.
And that is huge for me. Like, I have learned so much that has allowed me to be more aware. And it's an evolution. I'm still evolving. I'm not saying I'm perfect at this by
Right.
any means. And I always have growth. But every day, I hope that I learn more. And it's helped me shift my perspective.
Right. You present with that openness
Hmm.
and that availability
Yeah,
and the desire to want to listen.
it's an honor. It's an honor.
Yes.
And I think, when we listen to others, we learn new skills, we find different ways to solve problems, we become more adaptable. Sometimes I will come into a meeting with my assistant and I've got all these ideas. Now, she is sweet and she is quiet, but she is wise.
Mm,
And, I'll be trying to word something and I will like hammer it out, but it's rough.
right.
And she always has a way of finessing it
Mm,
and wording it exactly as I intended, but couldn't get out.
right.
I
That's
love it.
powerful.
It
Yeah.
is. And so I'm always learning from her.
I was thinking of the television show. Have you ever watched Survivor?
Yes.
Okay. So now I'll definitely want to go back and like watch the upcoming season because I think about like when they have a team building exercise, like the
Mhm.
team, they're all like rushing, right? They've got to get through the thing, they've got to get here, and everyone's talking at once. But then I imagine there's definitely episodes where, like, if a team pauses for a second and they can listen to each other of who's doing what and who's going to go where, they probably end up scoring better and winning. So even something like that requires listening to get ahead.
Yes. And I would say in that game, if you watch the person who is the active listener, they are most often the strongest leader. Like they are the one that you want to guide
Yes.
because they don't miss a beat and they see all the different personalities, they see all the different strengths. The one that just sits and kind of watches and listens
Mhm.
is to me the strongest player.
Right. They're not pushing to get heard. They're available to take it in and strategize and put all the pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think of someone, like I said, like an active listener or someone who does really well to receive information, who can think quick,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like being if that's you, like when they ask for new contestants to show up for the Survivor, like put your tape in the game. So
Right. Right. And I think, when you're the one who's been heard, and
mm,
as your patient, your teenage patient said, listen to, it wasn't about hearing, it was listened to.
right.
Think how much that builds your healing and emotional well being,
Mm,
and getting to have the opportunity to listen, not hear, but listen, builds your confidence that you are somebody worth trusting with this information, that
right.
somebody feels safe enough with you to say it is incredible.
Right. You might not
Um,
even have to say anything back. It's
right.
a really powerful term, kind of the Gottmans are these like relational therapists and they're a husband and wife team. They've been around forever. And they have the term holding space. And that truly is what listening is. So even if it seems something small or big, like if someone's sharing a traumatic experience and you're holding the space you're not fixing it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not moving it. You're not
Mm-hmm.
removing it. You're holding the space to do that thing that Christina gifted us earlier on this episode. You're creating safe space, trust bonding, and you're accepting the privilege and the honorable space of just listening to them. And they chose you in that moment. That's what I'll tell people, especially couples. In that moment, they're choosing no one in their world. They're choosing you
Yeah.
over and over again to just simply listen. And
And
that usually resonates with them. And then when they're like, wow, like in this moment, they can call a girlfriend, they can go for a walk, they can choose to listen to music, they can choose their journal. No, they're choosing me to listen.
yeah. And I think we've got to go back to reminding people that when somebody trusts you with telling you something and sharing a story or sharing an event or sharing something with you, you have to be very careful to not just jump into advice. And that may be just keeping your mouth shut. It may be saying, wow, that's really powerful or that's really impactful. What would you like from me?
I was just going to say, if you don't know what they want from you, ask them. Just like Christina said, I love that. Say
Yeah.
that again, what they can ask the person if they don't know what they're really wanting or what their role is. What is that
Right.
simple line you
What
offered?
what can I give you? What do you need from me? You know, I appreciate you sharing, like honor their story. Like I appreciate you trusting me with this, or I appreciate you sharing this. What can I do for you? And it may be nothing. I just needed
Just
you to hear
listen.
my story.
Yeah.
Or, you know what? I need advice. Like they might say that they need advice. And
Mhm.
here's what I would say too. If you don't feel like you can give the advice or you don't feel that you have advice, it is okay to say, I
Mhm.
don't even know what to say right now. Like, could I have some time to think about it? Or I don't know that I'm the wisest person to give you advice on this because I've never experienced it or I don't, nothing's coming to mind. Like, it is okay to say all those things.
Yes.
And, like, here's somebody who might be able to help us or something like that. Like, you don't have to have the answers.
Right.
And I would say probably 90+% of the time, it is just that they want somebody to hear them and listen to
Yeah.
them. So don't let your anxiety bubble up as they're sharing their story that you need to be, Gottman wise, so to speak.
Right. Or to be
It's
able to
just,
be the one to fix it. And you're not the
yeah,
mind reader. So I love that Christina said, what is it that you need from me right now? They'll tell you.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes just asking that question, they're able to figure it out on their own because they didn't have somebody throwing advice down their throat or demanding they do this or that.
And what a gift you just gave them.
Right.
What a
Right.
gift you just gave them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, when we can actively listen, we're strengthening our relationships. It doesn't matter if it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, a family relationship, platonic, whatever it may be. We are strengthening our relationships and we are also strengthening our own character. When we are somebody who can
Mm.
actively listen, we are somebody who's held in higher regard.
Can you expand on that so they understand what you mean?
I think when we are somebody who actively listen, like when our name pops into their head, they
Yep.
think more fondly of us.
Ah, they associate that really valuable trait
Mm-hmm.
with you as a human. Okay,
Yeah,
that makes
and see
sense.
you as
I
a
love
good
that.
person.
Hmm.
So it's a gift that you give to others and others can return to you in thinking well of you. Yeah. So I think we've got to hop back into some practical tips as we finalize this episode of just, what are some hot topics or hot tips, I should say,
Mm.
to be a better listener? Like, what's a few things that we could take away from today to be able to be better at this?
Well, I think one thing I'm hoping that we've honed in on is to be fully present with someone. You have to put away all the distractions. So that might mean your computer. Christina shared when she was talking with Carl, she flipped her phone over. She shut down her phone, her watch. Um, You might have to remove yourself from a room. If a room
Yeah.
is too distracting because you're seeing the laundry or you're seeing the things that need to be done, you might have to say, for me to fully listen to you, and that's really important to me, and I know it's important to you because you're asking something of me, can we please go outside and talk on the driveway? Because I know I could be fully present. You can
Mhm.
own it and say it to them. They will feel heard and they will feel incredibly validated. So putting away any distractions. If you're actively listening, one thing that might also help you is you can reflect back and clarify. So go back to that really quick situation that I gave you when that parent said, I hear you. And the teenager said, yeah, no, you're not listening. So they can reflect back to them. So what I'm hearing you say is that you come into the office and what you continually feel is I'm not fully listening. And you're
Mhm.
not fully feeling heard because I have my computers on and my radio is on in the background. Am I hearing you right? They will tell you, yes, that's exactly it. I come and I talk to you and you stay behind the screen. That doesn't make me feel like you want to be a part of what I'm sharing with you. So you can reflect back to them. That means just mirroring back what you heard them say. They will correct you. Don't worry. But if you got it right, you'll get a nod, or they'll be like, yeah, that's exactly. Again, also, if you're not sure, another great tip is just to clarify, like Christina just shared with you. What is it that you're needing from me right now? We don't expect you to be mind readers. And if you want them to know that you really want to be present, ask what you need to do for them and then see if you can honor it. And you may not be able to, and that's okay. Because it's your birthday is really being your truly authentic self. And like Christina said, you may not know the answer and you might be able to just say, I wouldn't be the right person, but this person might be better for you. Okay, those were a couple.
Yeah, I think going with that too is when we have somebody who's like fiercely independent, hearing the word need, sometimes I'll rephrase it to help because the second they hear need, they're like, oh, I don't need anybody. I don't need anything. Like, no, but
Right.
how can I help you? How can I support you? And then that way it's not like, because I think a lot of people will hear need and think like you're taking away.
I
And
like
that's not
that.
it at all. So I'll rephrase it to how can I help you or how can I support you in a fiercely independent person like myself.
I love
And
those
then I
gifts.
think the
Great.
other big thing is listening with empathy. Like it is not
Mm.
always personal. Don't take it personal. Don't get judgmental. Don't get critical. Don't get defensive. Suspend your opinions. And when you can open your ears, like, you know, we hear the phrase two ears and one mouth, but when you can open your ears and just listen, you can a lot of times learn so much instead of looking for how am I doing it wrong? What's my problem? Where did I go wrong? Maybe you did nothing, but this is just something that's happened, or it's been out of your conscience, or it's not something you did deliberately. It's an opportunity to learn, right? And we are all growth. Nobody ever does everything perfect. Like you were not born perfect. I always tell patients that. Like you were not born perfect. You brought trauma from before. You are learning. You are a blank slate learning how to live. So you're not going to do it perfect. Just like you didn't come out of the womb walking, speaking, and an IQ of 150. Like you didn't.
Right.
So you're evolving. And then notice the nonverbal cues. Notice the body language, look at the tone of the voice, the facial expressions. You know, are they scared? Are they angry? Are they uncertain? Are they doubtful? Are they excited? Do they want to tell you something
Mhm.
joyful and happy
Yeah.
and, exciting? Like the other day, I came home with like super exciting news from my husband. I was like, oh my gosh. And I didn't make sure he was listening. He was doing the dishwasher and the dishes and everything else. And he came back with like this totally off the wall comment. And I got really angry. And I was like, what? You don't listen to me. And I'm like, I'm going to tell you again. And he came upstairs and he's like, pause. And I was like, what? And he's like, I really wanted to hear what you had to say, but I was doing dishes and you caught me off guard. He's like, can you share that with me again?
Go, Ethan.
I know. And so I like took a deep breath because I wanted to get snarky again. And I said, okay, I'm like, give me a minute because I really had to go to the bathroom. was like, let me go to the bathroom. And then I did. And then we got to both share in that excitement. So notice body language, tone of voice, facial expressions, all of that. And I think one of the things that we are really bad about, especially in our culture, is silence. Like silence is awkward and uncomfortable.
Right. It's also very powerful though. But
Yes.
yeah, people like to fill it up.
Yeah, 100%. So, let them share their story in how they know how to. And just because there's silence doesn't mean you need to fill that space.
It goes back to taking that moment to come back to your five senses if you're uncomfortable.
Yeah. Why is it making you uncomfortable? It's not the end of the world. Again, there's no problem too big that we can't solve. Yeah. Might take some time, some thinking, some research, some, consultation, but we can figure it out. So
there was a ton of gifts here. I love this one.
So many gifts. I feel like this is an episode that we all probably need to listen to a few times to actively listen to it, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's what I think. Yeah.
So, friends, thank you for listening. Thanks for tuning in and listening to us. Our hope is that listening to this episode creates a positive space for you and within your relationships. If you know someone who might be able to benefit from this or who shares that they feel like they're missing some things in relationships, you might be able to say, hey, I was thinking back to that statement that you said the other day that sometimes you feel like people say things to you and you misfire or you don't hear them. I heard something and I just want to share it with you in case it lands with you as well. We would absolutely love for you to share this episode.
I'm going to interject.
Okay.
And if you have somebody who is a good active listener, share with them to validate them. Say, you know what? I was listening to this episode and I thought of you. And I just think you would enjoy it because it'll validate how amazing you are.
I love that.
So I think both somebody who may need it and somebody who just would appreciate some validation in this department.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, it is more of like a hell yes episode, not a oomph. Yeah. Okay. Keep hanging out with us on Thursdays. Hang out with on social. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. And on Monday mornings, we're flip-flopping. We're taking turns every Monday and we're giving you gifts from the couch. If you are finding this helpful and you are enjoying our community, please, we would be so appreciative if you left us a positive review wherever you listen to us. Until next Thursday, or even on Monday, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, friends.